Old powers waken, shadows stir. An age of wonder and terror will soon be upon us. An age for gods and heroes.
The glass candles are burning, and you're listening to the Obsidian Nights podcast. Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with the juice to get you through the long night. And today on the Obsidian Nights podcast, I will be covering Catelyn 6 with my special guest, Lady Palm. Lady Palm, would you like to tell the people who you are and where they can find you?
Hi, my name is Lady Palm. You can find me on Twitter, House of Pomegranates. I literally just created this Twitter so I can contact lovely MJ. So there's not much on it, but if you want to say hi or talk about Game of Thrones, I'm here for it.
Awesome. So Lady Palm, you can find her on Twitter. I will link her Twitter in the description box. Also, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or Podbean or wherever you consume your podcast at, if you could do me a favor, leave me an honest review. Let me know how I'm doing because that really helps me out. It helps other people find the podcast. In Tyrion's chapter, we left off with them on their way to the Eyrie. And in this chapter, basically, Catelyn is taking Tyrion to Lysa in the Eyrie, and she hasn't seen Lysa in years. She gets to meet Lysa's son, Robert Arryn, but a lot of people call him Sweet Robin. And she's arriving at the Bloody Gate. So how do you feel about Catelyn Stark, just as a general overall? Do you like Catelyn Stark? Do you dislike Catelyn Stark?
I love all the Game of Thrones characters. I think they're all amazing. They're all unique in their special ways. So I really don't have any strong dislike for Catelyn, but I really respect her as a character and who she is and what she has to go through.
Yeah, that's a very fair assessment. I don't necessarily agree, but I won't say I don't agree. I do agree. Like, I just dislike her, but I do respect her as a character. She does have some of the best chapters, especially when in Storm of Swords. So the Eyrie is a castle that's in the Vale. Some people say it's one of the most beautiful castles in all the Seven Kingdoms. It's like carved right into a mountain. It's made from marble. It's kind of like creepy when you get to Tyrion and he's in the sky cells. I think the Eyrie is rather creepy. But the chapter opens up. It says, "My lady, you should have sent word of your coming," Sir Donnell Waynwood told her as their horses climbed the pass. "We would have sent an escort. The high road is not safe as it once was for a party as small as yours." "We learned that to our sorrow, Sir Donnell," Catelyn said. Sometimes she felt as though her heart had turned to stone. 6 brave men had died to bring her this far, and she could not even find it in her to weep for them. Even their names were fading. So I think this early on in a Game of Thrones, George had Lady Stoneheart planned. Because it says in this quote, sometimes she felt as though her heart had turned to stone. And then 3 books later, we get a character named Lady Stoneheart, which is Catelyn, brought back from the dead. Do you have any thoughts or feelings on Lady Stoneheart? Do you think George had that in mind this early?
I mean, it's definitely possible. I also think like the imagery that is used when describing the Vale, it is very like gray and rocky and desolate kind of. So, yeah. It could be, he's incorporating the elements of her surroundings in that description, or very well could be foreshadowing to Stoneheart.
Yeah, I definitely feel like when I was doing this reread that that quote specifically was either George was thinking of doing Lady Stoneheart, or he went back and like retconned it from this from that quote.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're learning that things in the Vale are changing. So John Arryn is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And basically you have Lysa Arryn and her sickly son who's ruling
Mm-hmm.
in the Vale. And we learned that like the clans, like the mountain clans, which are like the wildlings that Tyrion winds up recruiting, are actually growing bolder now because John Arryn is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's interesting. Like
I
that's
mean,
an interesting note.
it does say in the chapter, I forget who says it, but it's one of the general people, that Lady Arryn is keeping her swords close, you know, and just her whole like aura with like keeping her, you know, her swords to herself, like she's really distancing herself from everything. And I really think that plays into like her guilt around, you know, her killing her husband, like someone who I feel like is like hiding, has something to hide.
Yeah.
You know?
That I agree with that 100%. And I think a lot of her guilt for killing John Arryn is giving her paranoia, which I feel like she had paranoia anyway. But at the same time, like she is keeping all the swords close to her and her son. Like she's keeping her son up in the Vale. And she took her son was supposed to be fostered to Tywin Lannister. It was already agreed to. And she basically just took him and up and left.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not gonna like let her son out of her sight. But like even like the commanders of her army, like her household guard or whatever, are saying like, I want to take some of these soldiers, these swords, up into the hills and root these people out because they're growing so bold. And Lysa's like, no, we're not doing that. And none of my knights are going to be in the hands tourney either.
Mm-hmm.
None of House Arryn knights were permitted to be in the hands tourney. She wants all her swords kept close to home to defend the Vale against what? No one is certain. Shadows, some say, which is another hint at her paranoia.
Mm-hmm. Going back to what you were saying about the Lannisters like wanting to foster Sweet Rob off to them, in this chapter, it says that since Lord Arryn died, Jaime was appointed the Warden of the East.
Yep.
And I mean, my question is, how could he even get that if he is in the Kingsguard?
Ned Stark wants to know the same thing. Ned Stark, and so the first real beef that Ned Stark and Robert have is in the Barrowlands when Robert basically confesses that, yeah, I'm going to appoint Jaime Warden of the East. Like, Sweet Robin can keep that title only as like a courtesy, a Lord of the Eyrie, but like he's a sickly boy. So he granted that power to Jaime. And giving that kind of power to Jaime gives House Lannister a lot of power because Tywin Lannister is Warden of the West. And then Jaime being Warden of the East, they basically control half of the kingdom.
Yeah, and they like cut the north off, you know.
And
like,
and I think Mace Tyrell's Warden of the South. So it's kind of like, dang, House Lannister has King's Landing, the West, and the East. Very powerful. And I don't understand how, I guess being the Warden of the East, like when you join the Knights Guard, you give up your claim to land and titles. So I don't know if Warden of the East is considered like an inheritance or more just, I don't think it was a permanent thing. that he was going to stay Warden of the East.
Yeah, it wasn't, but you know how things are in Game of Thrones, in Westeros, and in real world. You know, you put someone there, and they end up just, you know,
never
coming
leaving.
in. Yep, yep,
and never leaving, even when you want them to leave.
exactly.
Yeah, I just think I think the only real reason that he's able to do that despite his Kingsguard vows is that the king told him he could do it. Basically.
Yeah, and the Lannisters are in charge, you know, if you really want to go there. Like, you know, like people break the rules all the time, nepotism. So this is a example of it.
Yeah. So one of the highlights of this chapter for me is when they arrive at the Bloody Gate and we get to meet Sir Brendan Tully. The Blackfish. The Blackfish is one of my favorite side characters. Like, he's the only one that I like out of the whole Tully family.
Oh wow.
Like, I can't stand Edmure. Don't really like Catelyn, don't like Lysa, but I do like the Blackfish. And the Blackfish is a really interesting character. One of the most interesting aspects of the Blackfish doesn't pay off until like it's a Feast for Crows. I think it's a Feast for Crows when Jaime has to like parlay with the Blackfish, because Jaime was supposed to marry Lysa when they were kids, and Hoster Tully and Tywin Lannister were in talks about maybe arranging that marriage. And Jaime like got to meet the Blackfish, and like he looked up to him and admired him and all of that. And then you have to come to him as the Kingslayer, shit for honor, and try to parlay with him. And I think it's very powerful. I love it. But we get to meet the Blackfish, and the years haven't been kind to him. We'll say the years haven't been kind to him.
What my question is, after reading this chapter, like, why did Brendan go with Lysa to the Vale versus going with Catelyn to the north? I feel like Jon Arryn is a seasoned ruler, you know, someone that you know what to expect from, versus Ned, who, you know, inherited his position from, you know, when his father died and then his older brother died. And like both places, the north and the Vale, are very isolated places, especially the Vale, because, you know, it's so hard to get to. So I would feel like I would feel like Brendan should go with Catelyn to the north. She might need more assistance from him in terms of like protection and like, you know, having him like whisper things in Ned's ears, you know, kind of keep an eye on her all the way up there versus going with Lysa. And my guess is maybe Hoster did not trust Lysa to be a good girl, you know?
I think you're right. I think that's right. Like, Lysa was emotionally unstable. And I think it's implied, if not outright said, that Hoster basically made Lysa get an abortion.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and Ned Stark, he wasn't Brandon Stark for sure, but he's still Kat's age. Like, they're still in the same age group. By the time Lysa marries Jon Arryn's an old man. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had to take her kicking and screaming to the Vale.
I mean, it might be, but like, no one ever said, or I never read anywhere that Lysa was like crying at the altar or doing anything dramatic, you know. Like I feel like she could have definitely like tried to run away or do something irresponsible and impulsive, but she didn't.
She didn't. It's like, it's complicated because for me, I look at the Blackfish as being kind of like her prison guard, kind of.
Oh no.
Like,
Really
you can't
extreme.
leave, you need to do this. Like, and it might not even been that. It might have just been that the Blackfish wind up making a good relationship with John Arryn, and it's John Arryn that wanted him to come.
True. And the thing is, how soon after Lysa was married off to John Arryn that she actually went to the Vale? Because what wasn't John Arryn like out fighting battles, and then after that John Arryn was in King's Landing. So like, how long did Lysa was actually in the Vale and needed Brendan to be there with her?
Yeah, that's another good question, because if you think of, well, we know that they go off to war
Mm-hmm.
for after they're married. If we go based on Rob,
Mm-hmm.
it's about 9 months, 10 months of war after their wedding, because by the time Ned gets back home, Catelyn has already had Rob.
Mm-hmm.
So does John Arryn go to the Vale and then go home? I mean, then go to the Red Keep? Like, I don't know, and they never state it
Mm-hmm.
outright, but it doesn't seem like this is Lysa's first time in the Vale. Oh, yeah. Wait, don't they say she hasn't been back there since her wedding?
I don't know. I thought that she hasn't been back for like 14 years. Like the whole time that John Arryn was in King's Landing, she was there with him.
Yeah.
So I don't know if she spent a year or something in the Vale and then went, because right, like,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they never say it in the books, but maybe like John takes her back to the Eyrie to like introduce her as the Lady of the Eyrie, and maybe that he goes there to visit from time to time, I'm sure. Like, we didn't get really a taste of, like, we do know that when Tywin Lannister was hand to Aerys, Tywin went back and forth to Castle. So it's probably something like along those lines.
So in that case, why does Brendan, like, did Brendan go back and forth with her? I mean, you had mentioned that maybe he had like good relationships with the people in the Vale, and like, has, created, carved little niche for himself. So what was it? I mean, he could have gone and stayed in the north and like helped out Catelyn, who always felt very isolated there, and like, the fish in Winterfell, like, she could have probably used that. Maybe it would have helped her be less bitter towards Mr. Snow.
I don't think he went to King's Landing with them.
Yeah, I mean, it would have definitely like been mentioned, especially like Jaime being his little fanboy. Like,
yeah, I don't
would
think
have come up.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I know, like, the Blackfish has a very strained relationship with Hoster Tully. So, which is his brother, which is Catelyn and Lysa's father. So, and he's always been, the reason he gets the name the Blackfish is because he's like the black sheep of the family. So I wonder if him going to the Vale was more of his own thing. Like, John Arryn invited him to the Vale and he made his own way, like, in the world. Like, this, I'm gonna have this title as, the what is he, the guard of the Bloody Gate,
he's stationed at the Bloody Gates. I don't know what.
But he's the Knight of the Gate.
Oh, okay.
Like, so that's like, he's like the main person in charge of the Bloody Gate in the Vale. So that's kind of a high station, and that's not something that he would get per se with Hoster. Because Hoster doesn't really, not to say he doesn't like his brother, but he's not going to give him any honors. He's not going to give the Blackfish any honors. So it might have been like an honor thing. Like, I'm just going to go here and make my own place in the Vale.
Yeah, maybe he thought that there was more opportunity for him there, because like in Winterfell, there's no position like this, you know.
Yeah, and in Winterfell, not to say that like Ned Stark wouldn't make the Blackfish some kind of honorary place, but in Winterfell, it's a lot different. The Northern culture is a lot less friendly to outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see like Ned Stark making like the Blackfish the head of some high station if there was another Northerner that was just as qualified for the position.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think it's more of a, I'm going to go here. I'm going to make my own way. My brother has disowned me. I'm going to go become Knight of the Gate and command the Bloody Gate for Jon Arryn.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Vale itself, the Eyrie, and like the mountain, and the most of this chapter I feel like is just the ascension to get to the Eyrie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so descriptive. Like this chapter is 35 pages, but most of what the words are in the chapter is just them getting to the actual Eyrie,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to like go by horse and then by donkey, and then eventually Catelyn is like, you know what, put me in this basket. So
Yeah.
so they're on a mountain, and the mountain is called Giant's Lance, the
Mm-hmm.
mountain that even mountains looked up to, its head lost in icy mist 3.5 miles above the valley floor. Over its massive western shoulder flowed the ghost torrent of Alyssa's tears. Even from a distance, Catelyn could make out the shining silver thread bright against a dark stone. When her uncle saw that she had stopped, he moved his horse closer and pointed. It's there, beside Alyssa's tears. All you can see from here is a flash of white every now and then, if you look hard and the sun hits the walls just right. 7 towers, Ned had told her, like white daggers thrust into the belly of the sky, so high you can stand on the parapets and look down on the clouds. So she asks her uncle, you know, like, how long is it to get there? And he's like, it's going to take another day. Like, this isn't just no regular hike. This is a massive climb, and it's very hard for Catelyn. And so, like I said, they do horse, donkeys, and then baskets. So there's these baskets that are connected to a winch, and like that's how they get supplies up to the castle.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, like they asked Tyrion, like, Tyrion gonna get in the basket? Tyrion's like, I'm not getting in the basket. And basically Catelyn gets in the basket. Catelyn gives up.
Well, the thing is, I think Tyrion does agree to go in the basket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a callback to when he went to the wall, when he saw like all the steps to go up the wall. He was like, nope, put me in the basket. So this would be the second time that Tyrion is going up something in a basket.
Mm-hmm.
And also this trek, this mountain climb is done at nighttime, because Sister Dearest sends word down the mountain that she wants Catelyn to come up ASAP. Just Catelyn. The rest of the party can come up in the daylight. So Catelyn has to do this in the dark.
Yes, in the dark. And it's very, like, if you could just envision this mountain where you're having to ascend it, you can't see, and it's like you're just relying on the donkeys to be able to see, and you're relying that they're going to go in the right place, and you're also relying on this little basket, you in it, and a winch, and it's dark. It's
and there's one more thing she's relying on. Good old Maya Stone.
I was just about to get to her. Maya Stone. So Catelyn actually meets Maya Stone, and Maya Stone is like Catelyn's guide. And Maya Stone is Robert Baratheon's firstborn bastard daughter.
Mhm.
I really like Maya Stone. Maya Stone reminds me a lot of Arya.
Mhm.
Catelyn, being the snob that she is,
Mhm.
is like, oh, a stone, a bastard.
Yeah, she definitely makes that connection really quick, obviously. But then she has like, it's like triggering for her almost.
hmm
It says in the book, Cat had nothing against this girl, but suddenly she could not help but think of Ned's bastard on the wall, and the thought made her angry and guilty. Both at once, she struggled to find words for a reply. She
Yeah.
was triggered.
She was triggered, which I think it, even though in my opinion it is not right, it's not right. I feel like it's common for
Yeah,
highborn ladies to look down on people that are bastards.
of
It's
course.
common.
But like the way she, like, I feel like there are many bastards running around Westeros with these last names. I mean, maybe in Winterfell there was only one. I mean, we don't really hear about anyone else except maybe for Ramsay, but he wasn't in Winterfell, right? So I don't know. Maybe she's just not used to it, and I mean, like, but I agree. There's many bastards like running around all of Westeros, and she's just so triggered. I mean, like, hasn't she been desensitized all this time? Like, it would. I was just so shocked by her reaction. Like, she should calm down a little bit.
Yeah, she should. Because, like, you have enough karma in the universe for all the stuff you've done to John.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, leave Maya alone.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of like you hear those stories of like people in the hospital and they're like in dire need of medical attention, but then they see who's going to give them care and they're like, oh, not this person, like she's going to rely on Maya to take her up this. The giant's lance is 3.5 miles high. Like you want to, kiss ass and make sure that, this person likes you, to help you through it. And Maya comes to her rescue at one point when she feels like she can't go on.
Yeah, and, like, gives her a pep talk.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, I want to delve into the point where Catelyn feels like she can't go on. I think Catelyn has to walk across, like, mind you, it's pitch black. There's Catelyn's like holding onto her mule because at this point
It's windy as hell, too.
yes, it's windy, and like Catelyn couldn't be on her mule at this point of the trek. So she's walking, and it's like vastness to the right, vastness to the left. Like there's nowhere for her to hold on to. And at this point, she experiences some head pain. And it was mentioned in a previous Catelyn chapter that Catelyn is paired with headaches before certain things happen or important points of the story. So I just wanted to draw attention to that. And I wrote down exactly what. Okay, so she says in the book at that point, I don't want to look. The world seemed to be spinning around her, mountain and sky and mule, whirling like a child's top. Catelyn closed her eyes to steady her ragged breathing. So that, I would consider that like vertigo or something of that nature that she was experiencing in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been that. It could have been something more than that. I think I talked about this in another episode. But I'll let the listeners decide. Do you think her headaches are like some kind of blood raven meddling, something more? Or is it just her experiencing some type of vertigo for being like heights, like being so far up in the sky? I will let you guys tell us what you think in the comment section. Also, so I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Lysa and Catelyn meeting up again. Because I don't think Catelyn was ready for what she was going to get from Lysa. So Lysa was waiting alone in her solar, still clad in her bedrobes. Her long auburn hair tumbled unbound across bare white shoulders and down her back. A maid stood behind her, brushing out the night's tangles. But when Catelyn entered, her sister rose to her feet, smiling. "Cat," she said. "Oh, Cat, how good it is to see you, my sweet sister." She ran across the chamber and wrapped her sister in her arms. "How long has it been?" Lysa murmured against her. "Oh, how very, very long." So it's been about 5 years since they saw each other. So Catelyn doesn't really recognize Lysa. Like, Lysa's gotten fat. She's pale and puffy of face. Her eyes are pale and watery. And like, she says that her mouth has turned petulant. Like, as Catelyn is embracing her, Catelyn remembers like who she used to be and how she used to look. And she says all that remained of her sister's beauty was the great fall of thick auburn hair and that cascaded to her waist. So, yeah, Lysa, like, the years have had a toll on Lysa. Or the paranoia or the guilt, like all of it together has had taken a toll on her. But basically Lysa wants to know like what's going on with her quarrels with the Lannisters. And Catelyn's like, my quarrels, like they were your quarrels first, sister. It was you who sent me the cursed letter, you who wrote that the Lannisters murdered your husband. And Lysa's like, yeah, Catelyn, I did, to warn you. Like, I didn't want you, it's like, so you could stay away from them. I didn't want to fight them. Like, so Catelyn realizes fast that her and Lysa are not on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lysa, I mean, she's like obviously trying to throw someone under the bus to get, the potential blame off of her. I don't think she thought that Catelyn was ever gonna do anything about it, especially to that extent of, capturing Tyrion. Another, like, I don't know, I don't want to say funny thing, but like when you read it in the book, you kind of like chuckle to yourself how fake Lysa was acting in front of her maid and her maester, like hugging Catelyn. And then the second the door closed, Lysa,
the mask fell. The mask fell. She's a phony. She's a phony bitch.
Oh my God.
Excuse my language, but she's phony. Like, I can't stand Lysa at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna hate someone, it's gonna be Lysa, not Catelyn.
Right.
But like, it was so,
or both,
whatever. But yeah, it was a very well written part. Like, she just threw Catelyn's hands down. Like, oh
yeah. So she introduces Sweet Robin to Catelyn. She's like, "This is your Aunt Catelyn, my sister, Lady Stark. Do you remember?" And Sweet Robin just looks at her like, "I think so."
Yeah, like what like 5-year-old is like, "Yeah, I think I saw her." Meanwhile, he's never seen her, or he was like 1. Like, I found that funny. Like, I chuckled, like, knowing kids and like who says that? Like, it's just odd, and I think that plays in to the oddness of Sweet Rob.
Yeah, and for me, Lysa has a very weird relationship with her son. It's very obsessive, and like, I can't help but think that it's obsessive because of an abortion was forced on her. And I also think that part of the obsession is that he's Littlefinger's son. I do not think he is Jon Arryn's son. I think he is Littlefinger's son, 100%.
I really don't know. I mean, I feel like there could be benefits to, each paternity and like negatives to each paternity, like, but the way that Sweet Rob is described in just that short passage, like, it's so different from the way he's portrayed in the TV show. Like I feel like in
he's
the
aged up
TV
a
show
lot.
he's aged up, but also in the TV show I feel like he's more bratty. But like in the book, at least in this chapter, he's just so much like unbalanced. Like he was shaking enough that he like dropped his doll, and like I mean to see a 5-year-old kid like shaking out of fear or anxiety, like Catelyn, who's a mom of what 5 kids. How many kids she has? 5 kids. Like I would be like, oh my god, like there's something seriously wrong here.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is, that she had this abortion forced on her, and really, besides that, like he's all that she has.
Yeah.
Like he's all that she has. She doesn't have any more children, and a lot of the mothers in this story are very motherly, but Lysa is like she ups the ante like 10 notches to how motherly she is to her son, to the point where she's still breastfeeding him. And Tyrion, one of the funniest things, I think we talked about, me and Lady J talked about this in our podcast that we did on Tyrion's chapter, where like one of the funniest scenes from Game of Thrones is when Tyrion just stares blankly at Lysa breastfeeding Sweet Robin, and he's so big, even though he's aged up a lot in the show, so it makes it worse. But Sweet Robin has mental, I don't know if they're mental issues. I won't say they're mental issues, but he has a lot of fear and anxiety, and he's definitely not acting his age. Where Catelyn kind of compares him to Rickon. Like Rickon is half Sweet Robin's age, but acts 5 times as fierce. And Sweet Robin's been very protected his whole entire life. And Lysa reminds me of one of those mothers that would like totally do some Munchausen syndrome stuff to their child. I think like a lot of the stuff that they give Sweet Robin, like the sweet sleep and stuff, I don't know if that's helping him or not, or if it's harming him, like if they're actually doing harm to him.
I mean, like I'm sure, like it's pretty much she's like taking drugs, and if you start taking drugs, like as a kid, imagine what that does to your brain development. But there's also other theorists on YouTube that talk about Sweet Rob and how he keeps hearing voices, and there's speculation that maybe there's some tampering by the three-eyed raven.
Is that Preston Jacobs?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't heard the theory, but I know that I don't know the details of the theory, but I have heard that he has a pretty popular theory about Blood Raven interfering with Sweet Robin.
And then like if Blood Raven is interfering, I mean, like look what happened to Euron, like Euron's unhinged. And this little boy's unhinged, that not everyone has the ability to, like Bran does. So I mean, who knows? I mean, isn't the throne in the Vale Weirwood? Yeah. So there's that connection. I mean, like this is all goes along with the theory from Preston, like. So I mean, I think like I would believe, like I'm really for Sweet Rob having that, and also being drugged by first his mother, and then when Littlefinger comes along, he's given a lot, and like the way that the dosages are described, they're very high dosages,
and that kind of resonates with like Night Flyers, which is another story by George R.R. Martin. They have like telepaths, and they like dampen them so they can't feel things, so they can't hear these voices and see these things. So it could be something like that. Like that is a vein that George R.R. Martin has already punched in. So I could definitely, like, it makes sense. I just need to watch the whole theory. I do hear that Preston has some really good and original theories.
Mm-hmm.
So I will definitely check that out. And it would make sense for Bloodraven to want to fuck with, or the Children of the Forest to want to fuck with a descendant of an Andal. Because if Sweet Robin is Jon Arryn's son, Sweet Robin is the descendant of an Andal, and it was the Andals who came and killed all the children and cut down all the weirwoods, and that's why they took the weirwood for their throne. So it would make sense.
Well, since you said that, what is the likelihood? Since a lot of this telepathic stuff and warging has to do with bloodlines, the Andals obviously don't go as far back as the First Men, and the Starks are First Men, and they have all these amazing abilities. So, maybe because let's say Sweet Rob is not Jon Arryn's son, because like how would he have this like predisposition to be messed with by Bloodraven? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like how would he have that northern gene, like that First Men gene? Well, if we go back and did like some parentage on Jon Arryn, he probably has some kind of First Men. Like House Royce is a First Man house, and they are in the Andals. They live in the Vale. So House Royce, or is House Royce a Vale house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was about to say
Mr. Royce. Yes. He's like
House
the
Royce
steward or something. Yeah.
So, but they're also First Men, so I'm sure that blood could get mingled up in there. Like even if you do, like Jon Snow has a very interesting bloodline, even though we just on the outside look, oh, he's a Targaryen and he's a Stark. But also, he has House Blackwood blood and House Dane blood in his like family tree. So I'm sure Jon Arryn has something other than Andal blood mixed in there. But still, Sweet Robin is, if he's Jon Arryn's son, he's the Lord of the Vale, and he is Andal descent, and I could see the Children of the Forest or Bloodraven maybe wanting to seek some kind of revenge through that boy.
I mean, does it have to be revenge? I mean, like
it doesn't have to be. No, but that's just the note I riffed off of.
Okay. Yeah, because like I mean, like we don't know what Bloodraven's intentions are, but like I feel like his meddling has a purpose. It's not like something like to get revenge. Like
no, I don't think it's necessarily revenge on Bloodraven's part, but I still think that they're like, me and Quinn talked about this on a couple episodes ago on Obsidian Nights about the Children of the Forest having these different factions, and it was actually likely like a radical faction that made the White Walkers. Like all of the Children of the Forest aren't hive-minded, so it was likely like one radical tribe that said we're going to make these. So I feel like there's a possibility that there's the Children of the Forest that are working with Bloodraven, and there's likely still some radical Children of the Forest out there, like, and it might not be Bloodraven, it could be one of them that are interfering with Sweet Robin. And then you also have the Green Men on the Isle of Faces, which we really don't get much information on. We don't know what they're up to. So there's a lot of people that could be meddling with this little boy. Like there's a lot of potential people. But if it is Bloodraven, I don't think it's necessarily for revenge. I don't think it's for evil. I don't think it's for good. It's just for what he deems or what he's been shown has to be or needs to happen.
Exactly. There must be some purpose, and I can't wait to find out.
I know. And we're getting close to Winds of Winter. We're getting close, hopefully. But the chapter closes out with Lysa basically saying, well, what am I supposed to do with the imp that you brought me? Like, what am I supposed to do with him? And then basically it closes out. I will read the last quote of the chapter. It says, "Is he a bad man?" the Lord of the Eyrie asked, his mother's breast popping from his mouth, the nipple wet and red. "A very bad man," Lysa told him as she covered herself. But mother won't let him harm my little baby. Make him fly, Robert said eagerly. Lysa stroked her son's hair. Perhaps we will, she murmured. Perhaps that is just what we will do. And I think it was at that point Catelyn knew she fucked up by bringing Tyrion there. Like, I fucked up. I know she's thinking that she fucked up.
I mean, she's definitely thinking that. She says it in the beginning of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So that she's second guessing herself. And yeah, I mean, even on her way on the road to the Vale, she's second guessing herself. I mean, it's just, I mean, I feel like she's just in too deep at this point, and she just has to just see an end to this mess. Right?
Yeah.
Which it really is a mess.
Yeah, she's at the point now where she has to see it through, and it is a mess. It has turned into a messy situation. But Catelyn never thought her sister would receive her this way. And that is Catelyn 6 of A Game of Thrones. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, I just wanted to say about Tyrion and Bronn in this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Bronn kind of like weasels his way into going up the mountain with Tyrion, because originally it was just going to be like Catelyn and Tyrion and maybe like one other person who's like on Catelyn's side going all the way up to the Vale, but then like Bronn kind of weasels his way into going with them, and obviously that sets up for Tyrion to escape his punishment.
Yep.
You know, so and it was like Catelyn, who has all this power, right, could have just been like, you know, could have just like been like no, but she felt in that moment that she couldn't really say that. So I thought that was just a point to make. That
yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and I think it worked out both ways. I think it worked out for Catelyn, to be honest. Because if Catelyn had killed Tyrion, or if Tyrion had got sentenced to death, there would have been no way around that. Like, I mean, it's still they're going to war regardless, right?
Yes.
But if Tyrion dies, that ups the ante even more than what it already is. Like Robert tells Ned, like, she's had her fun with the imp, tell her to let him go and come on back. But by the time he gets back, like, the war's starting, war's breaking out. But I feel if Tyrion had been executed in the Vale, things would have been worse. They'd have definitely been worse for Lysa, for sure.
Yeah, yes. For sure it would have been worse for Lysa. But, like, I think the only other change that could have happened was that things just escalated faster, because Catelyn still lost everything. The North still, lost so much. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Catelyn 6. I want to thank you for coming on. Really enjoyed your company and dissecting this chapter with you. I will link your Twitter below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.